wrong gear. Ugh. I got that little hip lock thing going on. Oh, pop that in place. Hey everybody, it's Dick here. I'm out on my new CT125 Cub Trail Hunter Cub. It's funny, in the States, they're marketing this as the Hunter Cub. The Hunter Cub. And elsewhere, they're marketing it as the Trail Cub. And then elsewhere, there's just the CT125, based on the old Posty bikes. I guess the Posty is a little different. I don't pretend to be the expert of utility cubs. And I'm certainly not the first person to be making a video about a CT125. I think I've watched one video about the CT125, but I follow these Japanese guys who bomb through the woods in Japan on their CT125s, and there's a couple of accessory companies that I follow that wig these out like they're round the world Land Rover Defenders. And I've been waffling for the better part of 2 years about, one, whether Honda would import them to the UK, two, whether I could get one in the States, and they're like hen's teeth even in the States, even though they're saying they're importing them over there. They're sold even before they roll them out onto the sales floor, and they're all red. I don't want a red one. And then going through 7C's Motors, and if you see my last video, you'll know that I went that route with 7C's Motors here in the UK, which is a specialty importer of Japanese motorcycles. So check out that video if you haven't seen it already, and I'll explain the whole process of why I decided to buy one of these. We have the Super Cub, the Monkey, the Dax, but we do not have the CT125, so I special ordered it through a import company, and I'm just now taking it out for a ride on the first sunny day since its arrival. It was, look at this fucking nightmare scenario. What the f***? I've purchased a couple of bikes in the past without riding it. In the States, that's usually the MO. They don't have demo bikes as a matter of course. You can go to a demo day and see if you can go on like a group ride tour type thing. Here in the UK, I'm kind of spoiled where I can try a lot of different bikes out before I pull the trigger. Beep beep. I could try a lot of different bikes out and do demos before I pull the trigger on one, and it's been a long time since I've purchased a bike without trying it. I've convinced myself I wanted this bike, and I've convinced myself that it would be fine. It would be as good, at least, as the Mutt. Probably a little better, because... Oop, nope, wrong way. Nope, wrong way. Come on, baby. Well, that accelerates one of my talking points. It's this centrifugal, or centrifugal, depending on how you pronounce it, semi-automatic transmission clutch situation, where you push down on the gear shift lever pedal to go up a gear, and you pull up to go down a gear. And I'm doing all right with it, except for when I let muscle memory take over, when I'm not thinking about it. And you'll find I either upshift or downshift inappropriately because I'm using muscle memory. I forget what I was... Come on, Al. I forget what I was talking about before I messed up the gear shift. Anyway, the CT125 is 8.7 horsepower. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about specs on this thing because you don't ride this thing for specs. Pull up. There you go. 8.7 horsepower. Oh, I did it again. I'm fucking up the engine. Sorry, baby. I'm breaking you in and I'm f***ing you up. It's still in the break-in, and I'm running this fucking poor little engine through the ringer because I'm still learning the... Then I pull up to downshift. Push down to upshift. I lost my train of thought again because I'm so focused on this shifting situation. 8.7 horsepower. I will not talk a lot about specs. That's what I was talking about. Because this isn't really about specs. You don't ride this thing for performance in a traditional way, a high performance manner. It's definitely about performance in a certain degree, but it's more about utility performance than performance. There's some fogging in the speedo display that doesn't work anyway. I have the redundancy of my phone acting as a speedo because this is inaccurate in miles per hour. It's from Thailand and it was kilometers per hour. They adjusted it to miles per hour, but somewhere in the conversion it's not accurate. And I'm not in first. And there's a little bit of condensation in there, it would be distressing if I didn't have to replace the speedo. 7C's Motors has assured us that they'll make the proper adjustments so that it's accurate. 8.7 horsepower, 8.1 foot-pounds of torque. 8.1 foot-pounds of torque at 4,500 RPM. Which is pretty good because you probably want that torque when you're doing a hill like this, or you're doing any of the off-roading that this is being marketed for. I thought it would perform as well as the Mutt 125 or any of the 125s. Can't find the fucking horn. As well as the Mutt 125 or any of the other 125s that I've ridden in the past. But this is a lot more sophisticated, a 125, than I'm used to. It's very smooth. There's acceleration where you need it. I'm not running up and down through the gears the way I've trained myself to on the Mutt and other 125s. I thought I'd take the punt. I'll tell you why I thought I'd take the punt. I thought I'd take the punt because when I did the first trial, the John Ailey trial on the Mutt, I was going to have issues on the hills. I knew I was going to have issues on the hills. And I did. However, it performed a lot better than I thought it would, and there was a kid that I met who was on a Honda 125. He wasn't on a scooter, but he was on a Honda 125, and he barreled up these hills that I struggled up on the Mutt. And so I was relatively confident that the Honda would perform better than the Mutt. And if I'm pleased with the performance, if the performance was adequate on the Mutt and it performed as well as the Mutt, I would be happy with getting this bike and taking the chance on it. Now that I'm riding it, it's so much better. It's so much more sophisticated, it's so much smoother, it is so much better than I thought it would be. I was bracing myself that my decision was based on taste and that I would live with it because the other things I liked about the bike outweighed its lack of performance. But even though there's nothing performance oriented about this bike, it is so much better than I would have given it credit for before riding it. The seat is incredibly hard. It's a firm seat and it's high. 31.5 inch seat height, which is higher than my inseam. It's not too high. I can still get the balls of my feet comfortably on the ground, but it's high for a little scooter. So the firm seat, which is thick, but I don't know if it's as thick as I think it is because there is a kind of scoop out from under it for where you access the fuel tank. Ooh, neutral. Ooh, look at this old Citroen. Look at that old thing. That's cool. The seat isn't very long, so you got this massive rack off the back, but I find them sitting on the kind of handlebar on the rack. So I'm sitting a bit further forward than I anticipated too, but it's not as crunched as a small bike should be. Arms are in a good place. Knees aren't too bent, but they're bent a little further back so I don't have to sit on that bar under my coccyx. And again, on the Mutt, I would be downshifting and upshifting, trying to find the right torque to get up this hill. And I am just sat in second gear and it's just pulling up this hill. And I got plenty more. I can accelerate up the hill. So it's a lot better than I thought. Not even a lot better than I thought. It's good. It's not like I was expecting a disappointment and it's still disappointing, but it's better. It's less of a disappointment. It's not less of a disappointment. It's good. What I like about it is not only the utility aspect of it, but it's casual. It's approachable. It's a good entry. It definitely has the what gear am I in? It definitely has the adventure aesthetic, but it also has utility. It's got a massive rack off the back, it's got a kickstart, it's got large diameter wheels and high fairings that can take knobby tires, it's got a high exhaust, it's got a high air filter, snorkel device, it's got high bars, it's got a bash plate, so there's a utility to this. Now, I'm not going to get into the why did Honda choose not to import this, why did they choose to do the DAX, which is redundant on the Monkey, and all that other debate. It's been run over and over and over in motorcycling circles as to the business decision not to import this, and we all know that this would do great. It's not for me to decide or figure out why the decision was made. I have to look down to see the display, even though the display is not working, and I find that I'm leaving the indicator on longer than I should, which is a bad habit. It's a dangerous habit, but I find it's even more of a habit on this than other bikes, so I have to really remember. I have trouble finding this giant Honda button, this Honda horn, which I always used to hit instead of the indicator on every other Honda I use, but now I can't even find the horn when I want to use it. So I'm still getting used to the controls. The controls are box Honda stock bin standard controls, which, you know, people will say is cheap Japanese crap. I don't think it's cheap Japanese crap. I think it's actually very usable, fit for purpose, and it keeps the price of the bikes lower than more premium or prestige, in quotes, brands. And I'll say riding through Harrow on the Hill, which I've ridden through a bunch before, is a whole new experience on the back of this. I feel like I'm exploring on the back of this, and it's really fun. It's really fun. It's quiet, it's low. I feel more attached to the environment around me than I do on other bikes. I actually like this seating position, sitting up like this. I'm getting the hang of this this fucking transmission. The transmission is odd because shifting up, going into a higher gear, I'm getting a nice smooth transition from one gear to the other. I'm not getting these pops of torque that I did on the Mutt or other more agrarian 125s. But when I downshift, it's disproportionately harsh. I'm getting a lot of engine braking, a lot more engine braking than I would even anticipate. So even if I upshift from first to second or second to third, and then I decide I have to immediately go back down a gear, it's like I'm dropping 2 gears. I'm stuttering. I'm coming out of warp. So I have a speed camera up here. This is a 20-mile-an-hour speed camera. Right now, my stock speedo is saying I'm going 17, and my phone speedo says I'm going 24, 23. So I have to go for it. Speed camera, face. So now 16, 17, 14. 18, 15, 18, 13. But I find in the gears, you can get some really low RPMs without it struggling, without it protesting. That has a lot to do with the fact that you're in neutral by default. You don't have to pull in the clutch. So it's not going to stall on you if you're in the wrong gear. You're just not going to have the power to accelerate out of it. It's a nice forgiving thing so you can tractor along, and I think that probably helps with whatever off-roading people are doing, because you could tractor along in some low RPMs and not risk a stall. So I was just about to pull up on the shifter to upshift, and I just had a second thought. So it was delivered, and I pulled it into the living room, and my daughter Tootie was walking back and forth past it and not even turning her head or regarding it in any way. And I thought, gosh, I didn't think that she was as oblivious as what I'm seeing. And it turns out that it's not that she didn't notice a motorcycle there, but she just regarded it as another piece of furniture, because that's the type of household we have. There's nothing surprising having a motorcycle in the living room. But when she actually looked at it, she thought it looked rather long, and I didn't really consider that. I have to check the specs to see if this is any longer than the Super Cub that it's built off of. I think it's probably longer than the Monkey, but I'll have to check the wheelbase on it. But despite its size, despite its height, the height gives me some real presence on this road, even though I'm on a small bike. I mean, I'm higher than the mirrors. It's nimble. It weighs just a little more than I weigh. So me moving it around isn't very hard because I move myself around quite easily.
If you like that video and you want to see more like them, hit like, share, and subscribe.